Joseph Albert,
Here.
Roby Staples,
Here.
Jill Krevietz, here. Donna Corbin-Savinsky,
Here.
Frank Alimo, Joseph Perello Jr., Joe Marie Nelson, Elizabeth Davis, Jane Smith, and Patrick McCarthy.
All right. Can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Fire evacuation. In case of a fire, there are two ways to exit chambers. To my left, exit through the council chamber doors, turn left, walk down one flight of stairs and out the building, or exit the door to the rear of these chambers. In either case, once out the building, walk a safe distance away from the building. Jenny, there's no matters for executive session, correct? Okay. Public participation. Anybody wishing to speak? Just please state your name and address.
Just snuck in here to say hi, and I could talk. Walter Cruzel, 21 Charlie Road. Also, owner of Peerless Tool and Machine, 5 Peerless Way. I remember some years back, you people brought up the fact about the railroad going through Skidco and how there's a pile of old railroad ties collecting there now for, it gotta be 15 years. And I know there was an issue that you guys had with them on them leaching into the ground and all that, and I think it's time we revisit that or hold somebody accountable for that, because one, it's an eyesore. Two, it's the point that, you know, there's a lot of those are old railroad ties. God only knows what chemicals they put in them 50 years ago, and every rainstorm, something is coming off of them and going into the ground there. Now, I realize it's a state railroad that's being leased to Joe Schmo from Idaho, I think. I don't know who. Every time I see him working on it, it's a Friday afternoon, and I think they got 2 cases of beer and a couple of shovels. That's about all. That's all the time I ever see him working. On top of that, it's a railroad that goes nowhere. There's a brand new, couple years old now, maybe 5 years old now, bike path in East Longmeadow that there's no way they're ever going to tear that bike path up to put a railroad back in. So, I mean, that's another issue, but I think we got to
Right.
stick with the railroad ties. I mean, it's definitely an environmental issue, and I believe it's in wetlands. I don't know, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention that maybe it's something we can look into.
Walter, whereabouts is that located?
It's on Broadbrook Road. You got Enfield Transit Mix, and it's north of that, right across the street from the little, the farm there has that little stand for selling.
Right, from Jarmark's farm?
Jarmark's Farm, he has that little stand for selling vegetables. It's literally right across the street from that.
Okay.
He's got a pile of concrete ties down by the crossing of Broadbrook Road. And then he also has a pile of concrete ones by the crossing of Abbey Road, but like in between, like halfway in between Abbey and where it crosses Broadbrook Road, the railroad, there's a pile of old wooden railroad ties there. Very easily seen from Broadbrook Road.
Right.
And I just wanted to bring it to your attention, and maybe we can twist somebody's arm.
I think that, I think I brought it up at one
Some
meeting,
years ago, yeah.
when I
Somebody
first
brought it up
came
from
on,
here, yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, he either came in front of us or the town council.
Well, he did come in front of the town council, and like I said, he and asked when they told the council how this railroad's going to be reopened and it's going to take traffic from the one going along the river up there, and I just shook my head going, you're going to tell East Longmeadow, who just spent $1.5 million putting a bike path in, and oh, by the way, we got to make railroad track again. No way. Yeah. But that's another discussion for another time.
Right.
Let's worry about the railroad ties first, because to me, I think it's contamination. It
Right.
really is. Those are 50 plus years old. And you know, and I know, they soaked them with anything and anything they could find their hands on.
Right.
Back in the 50s and 60s, that had no no EPA, no nothing at the time, so.
Right.
Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Walter.
you.
Have a good night.
Have a good night. All right. All right. No, we have no public hearings on the agenda tonight. Correspondence?
You have in your packet the energy and environmental protection. It's just letting you know what they've done for statewide damage maintenance activities. And that's in their purview. And then you have the habitat. That's always interesting reading. And I think that's about it. I did have a few site visits, and I did have several building permit applications, but because there was a rush in the office and we had 3 packets going out at the same time, to get you yours, I couldn't get everything in that I needed. So that'll be coming, along with the minutes to the next meeting.
Okay. All right. Approval of minutes of March 18th. Those are the minutes that we don't have tonight, so we cannot vote on them, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
They'll be in your next packet.
For May 20th,
I apologize for the
May
oversight.
20th meeting, correct?
Yes.
All right. Wetland agent report.
As I told you before, I didn't have that in your packet. I'll report the next time. But what I did want to tell you, and I was hopeful that some of the new people would be here, is I've gotten my hands on a few really good DVDs. That the first one is the functions and values of wetlands and watercourses, and the second one is between land and water. It's all about the local amphibians and what they are and where they're located and what their purpose is. And this one, I really wanted the new ones to get because it's the actual commissioner's training. And, I mean, any of you are welcome to take it out. I'll sign it out to you. You can take it for as long as you need to and then bring it back and I'll sign it out for the next person. Okay?
All right, thank you. Thank you, Judy. All right. Building permits approvals, Jenny?
That was part of, I'm trying to combine the two of them into one report. And I had, it's the season for pools and sheds.
Yeah.
And in the regulations, it says that there's certain things that can be approved as of right, and small sheds and above-ground pools, things of that nature can be approved without having to take out an application. And I've had several of those, so those will be listed at for your next meeting, along with any in between.
We have any old business, Jenny? Take care of cleanup?
No, I will put on the agenda for the 20th, the one that we needed to just house clean, the gentleman who had the plans for the 2 houses, but he got, the 1 house, but he got approval for the 2 houses, and I've never heard back from him.
Okay.
So you should just kind of close that, put it
Okay.
to bed.
Anyway, new business. We have Inland Wetlands 555, Antia USA, inland applicant, / Alliance Energy LLC owner, 76 Hazard Avenue, removal of USTS and perform over evacuation at a gasoline station in a wetland upland review area, submitted 4/29/14, received 5/6/14, PPE 5/20, and MAD 7/24/14. PPE is acronym for petition period ends 14 days from the receipt of it, and MAD is the mandatory action date 65 days from the receipt. Correct. All right. We can hear them now.
Pardon me?
We can hear them now.
Yes, unless you want to set it to a public hearing, you can go over it now and.
Okay, they're here. They're here tonight. Okay.
Hi,
Names and addresses for the file, please.
Jesse Arroyo, and I live at 112 Green Street in Athol, Massachusetts.
Yeah, it is.
I think it is. I may not have been close enough to it. Sorry.
And I'm Tara Bosch, address 7 Blue Yacht Street in Milford, Mass. 01757.
Okay.
We both work for Antea Group, and we represent Alliance Energy as well. We're looking to perform UST removal activities at the address at 76 Hazard Avenue, and in conjunction with that, and then perform some over-excavation activities to remove some petroleum-impacted soils in association with the UST removal. The opportunity has come about that Alliance Energy will be removing the USTs, so it gives us that opportunity to remove the extra soil. Both activities will require the permission of the Inland Wetlands Group since we are abutting a wetlands to both the south and the west on that location. In anticipation of the work being conducted, we do plan to take the necessary precautions to protect the wetlands and to put up hay bales and silt fences along the boundaries of the property. And also, we're not going to stage any soils on that side of the properties. All the soils will be staged on the other side of the property. And we will be dewatering as well, and we'll have a frac tank on site and be containerizing the water and then disposing of it following treatment. At this point in time, not sure of the treatment method or the disposal method, but not sure if that aspect of the project needs to be discussed during this type of meeting. So we are looking for approval from the commission to perform this work and to perform the excavation activities, which we anticipate to remove approximately 1,300 cubic yards, I believe, to 10 feet below grade. The amount may be larger or smaller than that, depending on what we find in the ground as we're performing the activities. And we'll be screening the soils as they come out using a PID. And anything above 25 parts per million will be segregated for disposal parameters and to be removed from the site. We're trying to live load the soils and remove them off-site immediately upon excavating them from the ground, but they may be too saturated upon removal, depending on how effective our dewatering techniques are. So we may need to stage them on site. And if in the event that we do stage them on site, we'll be putting them on poly so that we're able to remove it fairly easily and covering it with poly. And if, depending on the amount of saturation, also have hay bales and berms around the soil stockpile itself to prevent erosion control from the wetlands. But we're not working within the wetlands themselves. We're working on, and there has been in the packet, flagging of the wetlands done previously at this particular site, probably in conjunction with UST removal activities that have happened in the past. And we're just proposing to excavate within the 100-foot boundary of the wetlands.
Jane, we need a motion to accept it.
I apologize. It says under your cover sheet, staff comments, Exhibit 8. There is no Exhibit 8. I did a memo for you guys, and I have no clue because it's not in here. I apologize. What I had recommended was the 10 standard conditions. And I also had recommended, they had checked not in aquifer, and the tip of it is in aquifer. So I had suggested an additional condition that they go before the Aquifer Protection Agency just to get their blessing. And it was, like I said, the 10 standard conditions and the one extra and any other ones that you wanted. I will be going through the packet myself for the 20th.
Okay,
Do we have I remember this, they coming back to us periodically with a maintenance. Do you have any of those records from the last?
Jenny, I have to make a motion, somebody has to make a motion to accept the application, correct, first?
Oh,
No,
No.
it was on your agenda.
Oh, all right, thank you.
Do you have any of those records from the previous owner by any chance?
With regards to what specific
Well, they did a lot
activity?
of soil
Boring.
drilling
Yeah.
Yes,
Uh,
correct,
and in the wetlands, which we approved.
correct.
Do you have any of those records that are, would give us a little insight on the gas is leaking or, whatever?
I believe in the packet itself, there is a summary of groundwater analytical results as one of the tables, and the.
But that's
the-
your result though, right?
That's our results.
Yeah.
But, and it also shows the historic results over time from when those wells were put in. So it's not just information that we've collected, it's also information that the previous consultant has collected as well.
And those would remain?
Those would remain in
And
place.
the maintenance would be continued?
That is correct. That is correct. And they will still continue to be monitored, and upon completion of all activities will be decommissioned and will likely result in us coming back here again in order to perform that activity.
Roby, you might want to make an additional condition besides the aquifer, that a report be sent to you yearly or every other year, but it would be your call as to what the time frame would be.
Well, I believe that maintenance program that is in effect stays with that property until whatever.
Until the well is deactivated or not in use any longer, I'm assuming is the condition still
Correct.
with the existence of the monitoring well.
Right.
Although the installation of that monitoring well was before Antea Group's involvement at the particular site. So, and I have not seen any documentation of any maintenance and monitoring records as stated by the commission for that specific activity. But it's something that obviously we will need to look into. But we do, at this point in time, still monitor and maintain those monitoring wells.
Well, Ginny, maybe you're right. Maybe we should put something in the application that tells us that they're going to continue the monitoring of the wells. And if they're not up to par, that they have to bring them up to their standard.
I think, correct me if I'm not right, but I think that your firm has to send yearly reports to the state DEEP.
Yeah.
Perhaps you could send a copy of that to the town, to my attention, and I can make sure everybody sees it. I know it's a lengthy report. I know they're not going to want to see all of it, but you
The
know.
reports aren't actually annual report submittals. The Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection has set up a schedule, and it's 2 years following entering the program to submit the COI, 3 years to submit a remedial action plan, and then annual reports thereafter. So there may be some periods of time. I mean, we're planning to sample that monitoring well on a quarterly basis to achieve compliance for it, and can definitely provide you with that information. But the timing of it is what I'm trying to get at as far as how often we need to submit it.
I'm not sure how long we gave them. I think it was 2 years. But maybe you can check back in the other application.
Are you talking about the application across the street
No.
from the gas station? This gas station?
Yeah, this is on the,
There are 2 monitoring wells in the wetlands area right
Yeah.
now. There is
Yes.
MW8 and I believe MW9 right now in the
7R.
wetlands.
Mm.
I believe they were installed in either early 2000s or maybe even the 90s.
before that, I think.
And like I said, that wasn't under our jurisdiction, and I
Right.
apologize for not knowing more about it. But if it was a 2-year period that you had granted, it's beyond that period at this point in time.
No, they've been back
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
more than once.
It's been recent that they closed the whole gas station down to redo all of the tanks and everything within like the last 5 years.
A little more, maybe.
I think it was well before that. I don't think
Yeah.
they performed the installation activities in the late 90s. I want to say that's when they did it.
91 is when we have the wetlands wells installed.
Oh, it was after that, I think.
And 7R was replaced in 2008.
So 5
The
years
one
ago.
closer to the road.
Maybe that's the last application we had, oh, the last time they were here, you know, but yeah, we have that on record anyway.
Well, hopefully, some of the, not Antea, but some of the monitoring wells that were dug prior, not at that site, but throughout town, I found have, just went directly to DEP, when it was DEP, and didn't go through any of the local agencies. It was kind of like the siting towers, you know, where they just go directly to the state and don't come to the town. But I will find what we have on file, and I'll get it to you.
We also have a current wetlands permit for the borings on site.
Yes,
that-
you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they had to do, come back and, because they bored.
And that permit was, when was that permit given? Do you know?
I think maybe 2 years ago, and we have 10 years on that permit.
Yeah. Yep. You did very good research on that.
Okay. Well, Donna? You have any
That's all.
questions? Go ahead, Joe.
Would you, in layman's terms, again, for me, in a little synopsis, exactly state what you're going to do?
Well, the underground storage tanks will be removed, so in conjunction with that activity, there'll be an excavator on site that will remove the top of the concrete and expose the tops of the tanks. At that point in time, then they'll inert the tanks and will evacuate its contents as if there are any and dispose of it accordingly. And then inert the tanks using dry ice. And I apologize if this isn't in layman's terms.
Nope, so far you've got me, you've got us. I understand.
It's layman terms in my head.
Yeah.
So they will inert the tanks using dry ice or some sort of equivalent to that. I believe they're fiberglass tanks, so they'll remove them from the ground and then crush them up and transport them to an approved disposal facility. The fire department will be on site at the same time to inspect and give their approval on the tank removals. And that activity will be conducted before we remove the tanks. And once the tanks are removed, there'll be a lot of water in the tanks, because water out at that particular area is approximately 3 feet below grade.
So water in the holes that are left from the tanks.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. It'll be one just giant swimming pool. And we're proposing to excavate down to approximately 13 feet below grade.
Below where it is now.
Below where it is now, and install some submersible pumps and bed them in gravel so that they don't get silted up in the process. And we'll start the dewatering process, and water will be put into a frac tank for containment and subsequently treated and disposed of using a POTW permit or some sort of discharge permit. But we'll have to maintain fairly steady flow in order to keep the hole dry during the excavation process. And then once we get the hole fairly dewatered and able to dig, we'll start digging around it. And during the process, when we're using the excavator and digging stuff out, we'll be screening the soils using a PID, and we'll be detecting whether there are petroleum impacts within the soil. That's why I say it's hard to determine the extent of the actual excavation right now, because as we open the ground, we may find more, we may find less, we don't know what we're gonna find at this point in time. We do have some soil borings which are in existence right now, which give us some sort of indication, which is how we came up with the estimated zone for where we're gonna dig. And we'll continue to remove soils and screen it, and if it's below the 25 parts per million, we'll stage it on site and potentially be used for reuse as backfill. If it's greater than 25 parts per million, we'll stage it on site, and depending on its saturation level, we may remove it off site immediately, or if it's too wet to transport, we'll stage it on site and allow it to dry out some before it gets transported to a disposal facility.
Okay.
That helpful?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I've got a few questions, actually. The residents, I guess there's some residents that are south of that gas station.
There's a
On Middle
residence,
Road?
I believe, on Middle Road.
Middle Road, correct?
Correct.
Do you know if they've had any issues with, they're using wells, I guess? I thought that's what it said in here, but,
No, to my knowledge, they're
Okay.
not using
Okay.
wells. We've submitted a public notification to them that we would be performing this
Okay.
activity, and I have spoken with one of the abutting neighbors. She did call me following receipt of her notification, and her main concern that we wouldn't be affecting any sort of drainage or any sort of catch basins or anything to that effect.
Okay.
And we won't be.
all right. The wells that, that we were talking about, the ones that were already used, the data, are you still using data from them or no?
We are using data from them.
You are using data from them?
Correct.
Okay. And those wells, that permit has expired on those, or you need another permit for those?
I do not know the status of the permit on those particular wells in the wetland area.
We still have time.
I think he's required to come back anyway, even if that permit is still in effect.
Okay.
It's in effect for the other person and not their company.
Oh,
That's why they're going through all this work.
But I thought there was the other wells that they weren't using. If they didn't know, you guys didn't know about certain wells?
Oh, we know about of their existence,
Okay.
the wells that are in the wetland area.
Okay.
And
Right.
we have not sampled them,
You haven't sampled them?
we have
We have data on them.
You have data on
information
those?
from
Okay.
those wells from the previous consultant.
Okay. That's,
But it sounds as though we need some sort of approval to continue our activities in using them.
because you are using it in a wetlands area, well,
In our regulations, and this is something I just found out recently myself, if an approval changes to another party, it has to be transferred into their name, the company name, the person, property owner's name. So if Clark and Smith Company took out the wetlands permit for those two sampling wells, as a formality, you'll want to change it into Antea Group. And I don't think that would be any large hardship. I don't even know if
No.
it would have to be something that you would come for. You just,
Would it require coming in front of the board again, or would it just require
No.
filing of a
no, I don't
permit?
think, because it's already had a permit on it, so you're changing ownership or changing, and so I believe Jenny can do that as agent approval,
yes.
because you're really not doing just using that well, correct? You're not doing excavation work or nothing, but you're using it.
Correct, we're just using.
Yeah,
it
it would just have to be that it was in your name as far as being under the permit or the company that you're in. Where's the soil going? Contaminated soil?
There's a facility in Massachusetts. It's in Chicopee, Massachusetts. Ted Ondricks.
Okay.
They're the facility, and I think that they do asphalt batching of the soil or something to that effect. Maybe they incinerate it. I can't remember how they actually treat and dispose of the soils. But we will have collected out disposal samples, and they require their own set of analysis to perform in order to accept the soils, and we will have that data for them before we perform the activities.
Okay. Alright. So you're removing 4 tanks out of there?
Correct.
Correct.
I believe there's a 12,000, 10,000, 8,000, and an
a
abandoned 6,000.
So
gallon.
abandoned 6,000. Do you know if that one's fiberglass or if that one's concrete, or you guys don't know?
That one may actually be steel, if memory serves me correctly, but it wouldn't be disposed of in the same way that the others were, but would be as crushed in place if they were fiberglass, but they would be transported to a tank disposal facility.
Okay.
The actual tank disposal facility, I do not know, though.
All right. Let's see. And that other, Ginny, the contamination from this property has leaked on north to 76, which is across the street, correct?
Correct.
I know they're just here for this permit here, but is this anything that they're doing, is that gonna benefit that other property?
Well, we're hopeful that they'll find the source of the contamination. They have been working for several years across the street with the wells, trying to locate and dissipate the contamination with some success, but not as much as they had hoped. And that's why we're hopeful that as they work on the actual gas station, that the source of the
leak?
the source of the actual across the street contamination will be located and mitigated.
And that's what this report is intended to do and it was intended for the state, but at the same time, it applies to a lot of the things that we're doing here. So
Okay.
we don't feel that the current and the existing tanks right now are a problem. It was the tanks before them that were a problem. And there's a lot of potentially source material that's in the soil that continues to leach out into the groundwater and affect the down gradient property over time. So what our hope is to remove the tanks with Alliance, as Alliance removes the tanks, for us to remove a large quantity of the source area in the soils, and therefore it won't be flowing off-site anymore because there won't be any materials to flow off-site once we remove all the source material.
Okay.
The station is closing, correct? It's being decommissioned totally?
That at this point in time, we believe that's the case, but have not been informed
Usually
of
when they
their
take the
activities.
tanks out, that's usually a sign that they're closing the facility.
What is the timetable for this project?
Well, it's, as far as the UST removal activity, which is Alliance is taking responsibility for, is they want to try to do this at some point in mid-May, pending approval of this, of the inland wetland permit. As far as the additional excavation that we plan to propose to perform, we still have to go through POTW, we still have to go through a lot of other avenues before we get to the stage that we need to. So we're looking to lag it a little bit and potentially be more towards the end of May. But all of that is pending your guys' approval.
Okay. And what records are you going to supply? We need the records to after this project's completed. You know, the records of who's going to keep testing the soil. Is that going to be on a monthly or two-year process, or
Soil or the water?
the water and the soil, actually, to make sure there's no contamination anywhere
Well,
else?
as far as the soil, we will, when the tanks come out, we'll collect the necessary sidewall and bottom samples per the fire department regulations and submit a UST closure report to them. That information won't include the over excavation activities, because all the fire department cares about is the tanks removal and the sidewall sampling that's been conducted, and that the tanks were in good condition. And we'll provide that documentation to them and can provide that similar documentation to you guys as well. But the over excavation areas, we are planning to collect necessary sidewall samples and bottom samples as, well, I say bottom samples, but there's gonna be too much water to collect bottom samples. So it most likely will only be sidewall samples that we'll collect, and we'll report them to the department. And you can also be copied on those particular reports as well. And then as time progresses, we will continue to monitor the existing monitoring well network, both on the site and off the site. During the excavation activities, we're probably going to destroy or or destroy approximately 3 or 4, maybe even 5 monitoring wells. After that, we'll need to reinstall those
Right.
monitoring wells, and we're not proposing to collect any samples, because at that point in time, it'll all be backfill material. But then collect subsequent groundwater samples, and collect groundwater samples pretty much quarterly per the Connecticut Department of Environmental Energy and Environmental Protection regulations.
Right. Where was that? Now that water's going, the water that you've already cleaned up is going to go into, it's going to be cleaned enough to go into our sewer system. Is that it? It's going to be
Correct.
piped?
We're proposing to, as it comes up from the ground, from the pumps, to containerize it into a frac tank. And then, once we receive approval from the POTW and from the Connecticut Deep, through a discharge permit, we will connect to the sewer that runs from the station itself. And we will treat it using carbon vessels, liquid phase carbon vessels, and then discharge it back. And we have to meet effluent discharge requirements per the state and per the town as well. So we will be monitoring the effluent to ensure that it's in compliance with those standards and criteria.
Jenny, do you have anything else?
No, I thought it was well-written. I got lost a few times in it, but I thought that they provided everything that was needed to make an informed decision. As I said, I apologize again for the staff comments not making it. All I had suggested to you were the 10 standard conditions, and then the Aquifer Protection Agency to look at it, because it is, the tip of it is in the aquifer. And then if you decide on a schedule where you want a brief report, you need to put that in your conditions as well.
I have a question regarding the Aquifer Protection Agency. I'm unclear of how it plays in or what it.
One of the items on your application says, are you in an aquifer? And someone checked no, and you are. So I have to go research. I'm the Aquifer Protection Agent as well, so I have to research it and find out what it is, if anything, we need to report to the agency. Okay, but I can't give you an answer now because this is the first time. Usually it's a business, and the business gets a permit. The business gets a permit to do approved business. Like you couldn't have a dry cleaners over the heart of an aquifer because of the potential for all the chemicals to leach down. I don't know that was on the list of people who signed up for the aquifer, but I wasn't here when it was done, so I will need to research it and get back to you very shortly on that. But I would prefer that it be a condition of approval, because if it's not necessary, I can report back to them.
Okay. Well, I only mention it because you say it affects the tip, but our excavation area, although drawn this way, is approximate. So we may or may not be affecting it. I'm not necessarily sure how that affects the Aquifer Protection Agency.
If you go online and you go into the Town of Enfield webpage and you go into the inland wetlands section, there's an actual aquifer map. And activity that's in a level A aquifer map either needs to be registered, sent a violation, or they at least need to know that it's going on. The Aquifer Protection Agency, the Planning and Zoning Commission wears the same hat. They are the Aquifer Protection Agency. And I want to go out on a limb and say that a brief report from me, since it's just a temporary thing and it's a one-time deal and it's necessary, should suffice. But again, I need to go into the aquifer protection regulations and just check and see if there's agent reports, as there are here and as there are in Planning and Zoning Commission. Okay?
And ultimately, how will that affect the proceedings here? I'm not sure if approval ultimately will or won't be granted upon our discussions today, and then the Aquifer Protection Agency notification will come later?
No.
I'm trying to figure out.
Normally, if it's a condition of approval, you have to make a good faith effort to get it underway while your project is getting underway. In other words, you can't leave it for 5 years and then say, we have time now, we're going to go to the agency. Several boards that I've been the liaison to have done this, where they just list conditions that they would want the applicant to take care of. It doesn't hold up the approval. If the board feels that it's a viable need and concern, they will set the approval tonight, but it will be, just like you have 10 standard conditions. They don't all apply to you, but that's what I call the boilerplate.
Okay.
This will be 11, and if they want to report, it'll be 12.
Your maintenance schedule, you're gonna provide that for us also, we can add that as a special condition?
Yep.
Correct?
Yes. I would suggest that you tie it to whatever schedule they have so that it's not, they're overwhelmed or you're not getting the report.
Right.
If you said you did it, after the first 2 years, or do you do it quarterly, or how do you do it?
It can be done annually. The reports that are sent to the department are a lot more inclusive. I'm not sure if you're just looking for results or if you're looking for the methodologies of sampling or what specific type of report, but all of that information will be in the department's submittals anyway.
Could I make a suggestion? Why not give them a very brief overview, touching on the main points, any problems, challenges, conditions, and if you feel after the first report that's not adequate, then we can come back to you and say, we want a more detailed. Because I know Zoning Board of Appeals asked for a report on a similar situation, and it was like 500 pages.
Well, that's what the report to the
Yes.
department would be
Yes.
like.
Yes.
It
Right,
would-
it's probably gonna be a lengthy, and
Just a summary.
we're looking for a layman's term for us.
We went out and sampled, there's the results.
Right,
Yes.
this is where your baseline was, you started before the project, this is where we were at.
Making
when we-
headway, you're not making headway.
When we
you're
pulled the
running into
tanks out,
problems.
we capped everything the first 6 months or the first year. This is where we're at now, the next 6 months or year. This is where we're at now. We're seeing the levels come down. It's moving forward. Something that we're being shown, and then just we can go back to the state regulations if we ever have any issues
Yeah.
or the state documents.
They have to comply with all DEEP
Right.
regulations, and I'm sure there's tons of other agencies. So we can be fairly certain that the minimum will be done. And I'm sure, they won't stay in business if they do just the minimum. But is there, in engineering reports, there's usually a small section, and it's just a very brief overview of maybe 1 to 3 pages of what the whole report's going to tell you. And that's usually what I've given people in the past, rather than,
Some sort of executive summary or something
yes,
to that
if
effect.
that's part of it, it would be just easy to just scan it in and send it to me.
That typically isn't part of the reports that we send to the state, but I think we can provide you with something on an annual basis. I don't necessarily know if that's sufficient.
Yeah, I think that would be fine. And Jenny, I think with recommendations for our site updates, maybe just keep an eye on that project.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I will go out and check on it periodically.
So that we know as a group where they're at. If there's any issues, then that we can bring it to their attention, or vice versa. If you're having any other issues that you didn't think you were going to have.
Yeah, I have a fairly good rapport with these two Antea employees, and I'm sure that if there was anything that we needed to know about, they would let me know.
Jenny, we just had 10 standard conditions, correct?
Correct, plus the
Plus-
Aquifer Protection Agency update. You can put in parentheses if necessary. And then the 12th one would be your schedule of, update schedule, yearly update schedule, brief,
Annual.
you know.
All right, can I get a motion?
Hope I say this right. I will make a motion to approve inland wetlands number 555, Alliance Energy LLC, represented by Aetna USA Incorporated, proposed remediation for the gasoline station at 76 Hazard Avenue, with the conditions of the aquifer update and the yearly or an annual maintenance schedule report to us, and making sure that the 10 standard conditions are met.
I second.
And it's too late to add one more condition to that?
All right, so that we're clear, I will send you a copy of the 10 standard conditions. The 11th one will be the Aquifer Protection Agency update, if required, and the 12th will be yearly update, brief report.
So I actually can finish my motion.
I'm sorry, yes.
And it will work, since I'm in the middle of it, it will work. And we'd like documentation of where the soil actually is, the contaminated soil would go, and where the tanks that are crushed go.
Okay. In the annual,
In the
annual
report of, well, when you do actually, take away the tanks and the soil, we would want to know, we would want documentation as to where that is.
All of that information will
Okay.
be provided in the fire department UST closure document. So yes, we can provide you with a copy
Excellent.
of that as well.
Okay.
I second.
Okay, we're gonna vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, you're all set. Thank you very much.
I'm still a little bit confused as far as what it means as approval. The PPA that you had mentioned when you were reading the initial. So does that mean we have to wait until the 20th before the approval is granted? I wasn't exactly clear on that.
Okay. It has to be advertised, you're approved. It has to be legally advertised in the paper, which I will do tomorrow for the following day. Legally, anyone has 15 days to appeal the findings of the agency. But you are free to do whatever it is you need to start to do, because they've given you the approval. Yeah, and I will get you the, well, you will need a letter of approval that shows the 10 standard conditions and,
Plus the aquifer, correct?
right, the
10 and the 2
aquifer
addition.
and the brief report yearly.
Okay.
Okay.
Zoning, for some reason, you're all set.
Yeah, we have to get a special use permit.
Yes, and I will do,
Yeah.
yeah, I will
The
do,
15th.
I will do a memo for that as well. That's a courtesy that
Thank you
the
guys
other
very
departments
much
do.
for your help, and Ginny,
Thank you very much for your
all
patience
of your
tonight.
help as well.
Thank you for your patience working with me, and, just keep my email address.
Yes.
Good luck, thank you very much. All right. All right, other business, we have the new application.
Yes, a gentleman's dropped it off this morning. It's for, excuse me, a two-car garage, mudroom, and a small bath. His entire lot on 16 Fairfield Road is wetlands. It's part of a subdivision. It's an older subdivision. It's a level lot, It's because in the past, he's gotten agent approval for a deck, and I believe one other small thing. But this is an impact on the property, and it's something that you will have to look at. I don't think that there's any other way he can do it. You know, it's not, I looked at the lot, and he's looked at the lot, and they're just, even if he put it detached, it still would be in wetlands. So you just need to look at his plans. He has plans, and,
And his plans have been stamped already?
pardon me?
His plans and application has been filled out?
Yes, yep.
And it's all stamped and approved?
Yes, it came in today. Well, it came in, it came in today. And I don't know why I thought it came in yesterday, but it came in today. It was put into the system, so you can hear it on the 20th,
Okay.
okay? I also would like to suggest, and I know this is out of order, so I'll make it short, but I would like to suggest that if you want to do a workshop, you should pick the first Tuesday in June. And unless, you know, there would be no carryover, and even if it's a new application, you still would have enough time if you pushed it to the second one. And you wouldn't need to have, it wouldn't need to be televised, it would just be no decisions, no votes, you would just be, you know, sharing what you see working, what you see not working, what you'd like to clarify, tidy up. The regulations haven't been looked at that I'm aware of since 2011.
Correct.
Okay.
All right, so you're saying the first Tuesday of June
Yep, your first meeting in
is
June.
June 3rd?
Yes, yes. And I would suggest that instead of having what I call a regular meeting that's televised and recorded, and you have minutes and decisions, that you just have a workshop. Just a very informal, as I said, no decisions, no votes. You just come and we just go over, you know, come with, everyone now has a copy of the regulations in the notebook, and you can mark them up if you want. I can always give you a fresh set if you need them. And just your thoughts. You know, you've been on the board longer than I've been your liaison. What's working, what's not? What do you have questions on that I can research for you?
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Shane.
Mm-hmm.
So if we do have, that would that would have been a regular scheduled meeting though, correct, that night?
It would have been a regular meeting, but if anything comes in, if it's not, I would
Okay.
touch base with you, but if
All right.
anything comes in that's not on fire,
Right,
you still would have plenty of time to do it the second meeting,
okay,
okay?
all right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Other business, tonight we have 9 South Road escarpment discussion.
Did any of you have a chance, or are you familiar with where it is? It's the property up above the Powder Hollow baseball field, the Diamond. And our concern had come into the department that the escarpment was being dumped in. 9 South Road backs up to the escarpment, and the question was raised by a concerned citizen of the stability of dumping, what it would do to the actual escarpment. Would it set anything in motion? Would it cause the whole thing to fail? You know, how much is too much? And our escarpment language is, I thought, fairly clear, but apparently not. It says in there, and I'm paraphrasing, it says in our regulations that escarpments are usually found at the base there's a water stream or wetlands. And in this case, there's neither. However, not all escarpments have wetlands or streams. It depends on, you know, as I said, the slope, the pitch, how stable it is, how long it's been not touched. So I was thinking that since you're not all here to discuss it, I was hopeful that we could have just a good discussion on it. You know, where do you as a group feel your concerns are with escarpments? Do you want them looked at, or do you want them looked at only if there's wetlands? Do you want them looked at only if there's streams at the base of them? There was one, and I would prefer not to name the location, but well, I won't name the actual house, but there, Sandpiper backs up. Sandpiper's off of Abbey, and it backs up to a horseshoe aquifer. And there's another street below it, but again, there isn't any water. And so it was not felt that that was anything that needed to come before you. So I'm just looking for some guidance. That's why I want to have a workshop. I want to make sure that I'm going in the right direction and that your concerns are being addressed if you have any. You know, if you all feel that, you know, unless there's water at the base of an escarpment, you shouldn't be looking at it, I need to know. You know, that's why I said we need to have a very lively workshop.
Is this on the, let's see,
Roby,
South
Mike,
Road?
please. Thank you.
That's on South Road part, right?
Yes.
About how many houses down with that?
It's a couple up from the center of Hazardville where all the lights are, the cemetery. A gentleman took out, it was purchased, and the person took out a building permit to rehab the house. And I don't know whether it's lived in or not. The building permit has been ongoing for several years. And in the meantime, the person had been cited by the zoning enforcement officer for running a business and bringing home materials from that business and putting them in the backyard. Well, now apparently they're going further into the backyard. I'm not the zoning enforcement officer anymore. So, you know, I just am a little confused about escarpments. I thought that
There is some wetlands behind him though, right?
There is.
There's
there
a
is.
street though in back of him, I believe. Well, if there's no wetlands there, what are we gonna get involved for?
Okay.
Let zoning,
Deal with it.
Well,
I think
zoning can control an escarpment.
pardon me?
Zoning can control escarpments, I think.
no, that's
That's erosion. Planning and zoning oversees erosion
If-
for sites, but not escarpments. There's a
escarpments
difference.
is
What are they?
escarpments is an R.
It's in your
It
regulations.
is if there's water.
Well,
No, it says usually, it doesn't say always.
it's a very, I would say, the area that I haven't walked the property yet, so I can't make a determination of the property or what it looks like because I haven't walked it. She just brought it to our attention. It's within how many feet of a wetland area?
I haven't measured it.
So we really can't do anything until we know the definite amount of footage. We have some better, we need
Well,
some better pictures.
It was walked by the zoning enforcement superintendent, and she felt there was no concerns. She didn't feel it was going over the escarpment, which the neighbor said it was, and she didn't feel that it would cause any damage. However, you know,
Well,
Maybe
need
if
a
we get a
workshop.
50-year storm,
I-
it might.
we need a workshop.
this is what my recommendation. If somebody brought it to the town's attention, it must have been a concern. The zoning enforcement officer looked at it. She says that it wasn't a concern. The fact of the matter is we have escarpments on our regulations, but we can't police every escarpment either because. So, I think if it's not an issue with her, But she's not an inland inland wetlands liaison either. So she's doing what she's supposed to do. But I think we need to know determination of how far away from the wetlands it is, first of all. Better pictures of it, so we can see what's going on. And then we can go from there. If it's something we need to look at further, fine, we can discuss it at the workshop.
Yes.
Not that property, but we can
No,
discuss
in general.
in general, escarpments, and maybe get some feedback from either the state to what our limitations are as an inland wetlands agency.
I did call the state, and they said that it is within your purview if you feel there is a concern for failure. If the slope looks like it will fail, even if it's not in wetlands, you do have the authority to look at it.
Okay.
But she said that was your call, and it should be something in your regulations, which you do have.
Right.
But then again, I'm not an engineer. Not every slope is going to fail.
I'll tell you what, how about if you go out and look at it, you make a determination, get us some,
Okay.
a lot of pictures of it. Talk with the owner,
Is it grades within 15?
get some kind of history on it. If it's a major issue, then, we'll have to put it on the agenda for our next meeting then.
Any other activity?
I think that would be the fairest thing to do, to talk with the owner, let him come in and explain to us, what's going on.
Okay.
You can look at it, give us your recommendations, plus we can look at pictures of it, and if we want to, if the owner gives us permission to go on the property, to look at it, we can
There's
we
actually
can
no
go on.
water there.
on site and look at it too, so. I think that's it, right?
It's in there.
I'd like to add something to, could I do that?
Yep.
Can I add something to, I was wondering if we can move the executive session, to, the end of
Yes.
our regular meetings.
I'd like to make a suggestion that you look in in the book that I gave you, there's
Yep.
bylaws. You have the regulations, the bylaws, a list of the members, and in the back you have the chart for all the dates, like when it gets accepted, when the meeting date is. And I would like to suggest that you look at your bylaws and see how the actual agenda is. And I'd like to see staff report moved closer to the bottom, because you have the applicants who come sometimes from a far distance, and they're sitting there while I'm trying to hurry and get my stuff in and not keep them waiting.
The only thing with the staff reports, as far as if it regards, property that's adjacent to it, that's the only reason why, I'm just throwing that out there right now. And we could talk about that in a workshop also. I
Yeah.
think. But, I wouldn't make any decision on anything
Oh,
tonight.
no, nope.
Unless we have
Just
a
something
full
to look at.
board and have the new members also have their input too. So,
Yep.
all right, next meeting is Tuesday, May 20th, 2014, at 7 PM in the council chambers. And I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.